Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 62, Cannonier versus Borralho, also known as UFC Vegas 96. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com. With me, as usual, is Keith Shillan, the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network. Keith, how are you doing today?
Doing good, man. A late night last night watching UFC 305, doing the recap show early morning. I was at softball all day. I'll ask you how you're doing in a second, but real quick, before I forget, I told these guys I always give them a shout out. I want to give a shout out to the Rhode Island Bombers. It was a really good day, but also a sad day, as this was our final game of the season. Our 14U season is over. We're moving up to 16U, even though we actually have a whole nother year of eligibility down in 14. We decided to move up anyways. I'm very proud of the season they had. Finished with a 41-12 record, which was pretty cool. But it's sad because we're losing three players. Either some of them decided to stay down or play for another team, or just move on from softball altogether. I want to make a super – dude, my daughter had a freaking incredible season. I want to make a super shout-out to her. This weekend she pitched 17 innings. At one point she had to pitch 10 straight innings. She came in the semifinals of the tournament, finished like pretty much pitched the entire semifinals, and then pitched a big portion of the finals. In the 17 innings she gave up 0 runs, 2 hits, 0 walks, and 22 strikeouts. So she was absolutely lights out. I'm just so proud of her. Unfortunately, we did not win the tournament. We lost to a team that we previously beat a bunch of times. But hey, congratulations to that team who beat us. They're really good people. But anyways, Ben, I just want to give a shout out. That's what I do a lot. That's what I spend like pretty much. This is my life, guys. There's 3 things I do in life. I watch MMA and do preview shows. I watch girls. I coach girls softball and I coach wrestling. That's it. That's my life. So, Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I mean, in between all that, you do find time to help keep the streets of Rhode Island free of crime.
Oh yeah.
As free of crime as is possible for Rhode Island. Yeah. I know there's some dirty streets out there. I'm doing fine. Yeah, we had a late night last night. Today, just kind of got Sunday crap done. Mowed my lawn. That's always a life-threatening experience in Texas in the summer.
I'm sure it is.
Like,
you're laying on the grass next to an armadillo, just dying of dehydration.
Well, I mean, like, my wife kind of looked at me funny when I went out to mow the lawn at like 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon. She's like, "This is the hottest part of the day." And I'm like, if I wait till 6:30, it's going to be 96 instead of 99. Is it that big a difference?
I can see that.
It's like 8:15 p.m. here right now, and it's still over 90 outside. Like, what's the real difference? This is the life we chose. Anyway, UFC Vegas 96, UFC on ESPN 62. A weird card, to say the least. Only 11 fights on the whole card. Only 10 of them do we even know all the participants yet, because this is, of course, the de facto final of the Ultimate Fighter Season 32, Team Grasso versus Team Shevchenko. We already know the participants in the middleweight final. We'll talk about that later when we get to the main card. We're still waiting on half of the featherweight final. Obviously, it's been decided. Those guys finished taping the show a couple months ago, but it's being kept a secret. It'll be unveiled this week. We'll talk about those finals to the extent we're able to. Even outside of the tough finals, and even by the usual standards of an Apex ESPN card, I'm going to say, Keith, this one is rough. It has a couple of the more puzzling signings in recent memory in the UFC. It's man, I'm trying to find a kind and diplomatic way to put this. If your cards are full of people that lost on the Contender Series, then either A, what is the Contender Series even for? Or B, explain to me why the UFC is better than the Contender Series. Like, if you can lose on the Contender Series and still get a contract in the UFC, why is the UFC even better?
Yeah, kind of defeats the purpose.
It kind of defeats the purpose. Anyone who has been watching our show over the last 4+ years knows that I'm as staunch a defender of Angela Hill, as you'll find probably in the media space. I think she's a fun person. I enjoy watching her fights. Someone has to. But a fighter that is under 500 in the UFC should not be in the co-main event of any card. Full stop.
What's her UFC record?
12-13.
Oh, all right. She's on her way up. She's on a nice little winning streak, though.
Now, have we switched places? Like,
come on,
you sound like me.
Get two more. Yeah, I mean the card's not. I mean this is a. I'll give it like a C. Like the main event isn't like the sexiest main event. There's a couple of fighters down on the card that I'm interested in. There's a couple of prospects. I think there's some good, interesting matchups like Magny versus Morales and some action fights. I give it like a C. I mean, it is what it's. This is your. If you could like sum up we have to give ESPN so many cards a year, so many fights a year. Like if you want to sum that up into one card, it's this. There's just no structure. They'll get thrown together any way possible.
And I'll give it a C along with you. In a case of addition by subtraction, because there's only 11 fights. If this card had 14 fights on it, just 3 more of the same, it's a D.
Okay.
Like it's a case where by the time the main event comes around, I'll be really primed for it. Cannonier versus Borralho is actually a really good fight. You know, maybe this is the win that propels Borralho over the edge and into like next guy on the list contendership. We'll see what happens there. But aside from that, not much else to say unless you've got anything. Let's jump into these prelims.
Yeah, okay. Let's do it.
First up at UFC Vegas 96 is a women's flyweight matchup between the debuting Wang Cong and Victoria Leonardo. Wang, the 32-year-old from China, is a perfect 5-0 as a professional mixed martial artist. She won her way into the UFC by fighting on Road to UFC back in May. She tapped out Paula Luna in the first round. She wasn't really part of any sort of tournament thing. It was really just sort of a vehicle, I think, to get her to the UFC. And sure enough, here she is, ready to face Leonardo. 34-year-old Louisiana native is 9-5 overall. She's 1-3 since joining the UFC out of season 4 of Dana White's Contender Series. She did lose her last time out. It was a little over a year ago, May of 2023. It was at UFC Fight Night Dern versus Hill, where she got put away in the first round by Natalia Silva. So she's back again, a little over a year later. And she is a whopping underdog. There are a couple of massive lines on this card, none more massive than this one, as Wang is minus 850, Leonardo plus 600. I mentioned off the top.
Can I do a story time with Keith real quick?
Please, absolutely.
So I was in the Army and you shooting guns and everything. And I started complaining about my hearing. I'm having a really hard time hearing things. And I told my wife that, and like my parents are like, oh, you got to reach out to the VA and maybe get a hearing aid or some shit. And I think I'm having trouble right now because I think you just said that this debutante was a negative 850 favorite or something like that. Obviously, you meant to say 150, right?
She is, just like I said, a minus 850 favorite. Like,
speaking to my good ear.
Yeah, your good ear. Minus 850, and that's
why.
Well, let's get to it. Okay. I mentioned that this is the de facto final of Tough 32. Team Grasso versus Team Shevchenko. The whole reason Wang Cong is in the UFC is that she beat Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing a million years ago. That's it. Wang Cong is a 32-year-old woman with 5 professional MMA fights, but she is a multiple-time former Wushu Sanda world champion. And unlike regular Western kickboxing, there's just one Wushu Sanda Federation, and it covers a country with 1.2 billion people. So she is real good at Kung Fu. And as she showed on Road to UFC.
Hold on. 1.2 billion people in China, but they still didn't get more medals in the Olympics than America did, so fuck off. Sorry.
For as long as the Olympics go on, we're going to be petty.
Yeah, we're going to be petty. Shout out to all our Chinese listeners who are like, what the hell, dude? Why'd you insult us for no reason?
That's it. Wang Cong is a former Wushu Sanda world champ. She is, I guess, the UFC is kind of hoping we get some Alex Pereira type shine here. If she gets to the UFC, wins a few, I don't understand the game plan here at all, because one thing I'll give her is she's not, for somebody that only turned pro at age 30, like she was already 30 when she turned pro, was in 2022. She only has 5 fights. They're against the lowest of low-level competition. I mean, her best win is over Wu Yanan, who washed out of the UFC on 4 straight losses. But having said that, as somebody that did Wushu Sanda probably from age 5 and has only done MMA for like 2 or 3 years, she's not a complete dummy on the ground. Combine that with the fact that she is a physical hoss and obviously a very good striker in her own way. She has the potential to do some fun things here. And the UFC has done its absolute damnedest to make sure she has a successful debut by matching her up with Leonardo. I still don't feel minus 850 about it. I mean, Victoria Leonardo kind of has a history of knocking off people that the promoter would probably much rather have win. I mean, she handed Haley Cowan her first loss. She beat Chelsea Hackett on the Contender Series when the UFC was practically dusting off a podium for Chelsea Hackett to be like the next Gina Carano or something, as like this, smoking hot kickboxer. And Leonardo lamped her. Yeah. So Leonardo, no stranger to being a spoiler, but she's going to be smaller. And while Leonardo is well-rounded, Wang's just going to be bigger. She's a hard hitter. I'm no expert on Wushu Sanda. So when I watch someone like Wang Kong fight, I compare it to the kickboxing I've seen. It's interesting. Like, she's got what you think of as the Sanda stance, like a little more side on, almost pigeon-toed. It looks flat-footed to me. Like, she does a lot more of just kind of sliding, almost like a Western boxer, and then springing into her attacks. She's orthodox, has a nice left hand, good jab, good lead left hook that I saw her hurt women with. She doesn't have a bunch of like one-shot KOs or anything. I mean, not many women at 125 pounds do, but in kickboxing as well as MMA, every time she hits her opponent, you can tell they feel it. She's a hard hitter. I mean, give me Wang to win this one. Leonardo's well-rounded. She's aggressive, but she's not terribly athletic, and she's had durability issues, like one, just getting rocked up with punches. She also has a loss in the UFC due to like a freakish injury. At this point, I think she's like 35. Give me Wang Kong to just kind of pound on Victoria Leonardo on her way to a late TKO stoppage. I'll say TKO late in the second round. And I have no idea if she speaks good enough English to cut a killer promo on Shevchenko. But if she doesn't, I'm sure the UFC booth will do it for her.
So she's the woman's Alex Pereira. She's coming in, about to take over. Is going to save every card and fight in 3 different weight classes. And
please run this thing back at me if Wang Kong is your featherweight or your flyweight champ a year and a half from now, and is having like a trilogy fight with Shevchenko or something. But I don't see it.
You said all these accolades about this woman. I mean, we were supposed to be excited about this Chinese woman. My daughter would strike her out. So she strike her out in 3 pitches. So enough with your wushu or whatever, Wing Chong or whatever. What a fake karate.
I'm gonna be making Wang Chung jokes on the recap for this thing. Anyway,
well, good thing you didn't. Talking about swinging and missing, dude. If you asked me what the line on this one was, I was going to go with Wang, being undefeated and everything. And, she definitely looks good on tape. I'm going to guess like negative 150 favorite, something like that. Negative 850. Holy Christ. I mean, Leonardo, like, I get it. She's not a great athlete. I mean, she fights flat-footed, but she makes up for it. You said she's going to be smaller, but I don't think she'll be like not as strong. Like she might be giving up an inch in height and stuff, but like think about Leonardo, she's a strong woman. Like she can get in there. She presses the action, constantly marching forward. She's got good volume. She likes to kind of burst with from the outside with combinations. Likes to get in the pocket and unload. She chases the KO instead of letting it happen. Well, that's one issue I have. She'll throw a lot of kicks, which kind of keeps her opponent at distance. And she got a pretty good kicking game, but I've said this before about it. It's more like round winners than trying to do damage with them. She needs to improve her striking defense. Like, she stands up really tall with chin high in the air, and a lot of people recently have made her pay for that. And this is obviously a decorated striker that could do the same. She also open to leg kicks, and she struggles as she pushed on her back foot. She loves to muscle her opponents in the clinch, though, and that's probably her best avenue of victory in this fight. If she can close the distance, kind of grind out portions of the fight, maybe you dirty box, land a knee or an elbow, drop down on the legs and land a takedown. She's not a bad wrestler. Not a great wrestler, but she's not a bad wrestler. She's hard to take down herself because she's super strong. I've compared her in the past, kind of like a similar like a Lauren Murphy, where she's just more like a brute than anything. If taken down, she's hard to hold down. If she's on top, she's looking to land damage instead of submission. And I mean, she's going to press the action all 15 minutes. She's not going to stop. Wang, yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. Like, yeah, she's got an impressive record and she looks really good on film. But she's 32 years old. Like, I don't want, 33 years old, you said, right?
32, yeah.
32 years old. Like, she's UFC debutante at 32. I mean, she's undefeated. She fights with a lot of pressure. For decorated kickboxing, she's a little flat-footed, though, a little plodding, which is surprising. She loves to brawl, though. Like, she wants to get in the pocket and just unload big shots. She mixes punches and kicks together well in combination. A lot of inside kicks. She won one of her fights with an incredible high kick. She doesn't move her head, though, which is surprising for a decorated striker. And chin is in the air. She actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that she will try to take the fight to the ground. She will wrestle. The problem is she's not that good at it. She's one of the ones, like, she'll catch a kick and kind of get the fight to the ground that way. But you mentioned she got a submission in her last fight. And what I've seen of her, she's got the cardio to go hard all 15 minutes. Cong is good. I don't know if she's 8-1 good, but she's a good boxer. She has an impressive pace. You know, I still think Leonardo has the advantage in the clinch. She also has the experience and the UFC experience. I think the apex doesn't help Leonardo's chances. I think if Leonardo had a crowd, if this fight was in, Perth last week, would help her a little bit. But if she can get a takedown, she could steal some rounds. I want to do it, Ben. I want to say Leonardo does it again one more time. This has got to be the biggest upset I've ever picked. I'm going to say Leonardo. Yeah. It's grinds, makes it grimy. Fuck it. Give me Leonardo by split decision.
I love it. I so hope that you're right and I'm wrong. Not because I have anything against Wang, but would love the chaos. Always fun to see a promoter like kind of do this kind of cynical matchmaking and then get stung for it. Yeah.
I hope it's either she wins and it's fun to talk about this upset, or it's the complete opposite where Wang just like styles on her and you're like, oh shit, maybe this girl is the real deal. I don't want anything in between.
Right.
Like, she wins, but it's not that impressive. Like, I don't want that.
No, I'm totally on board with that.
That's my best stupid pick for me, but yeah, Leonardo, let's go.
Next up on the UFC on ESPN 62 prelims is a lightweight matchup between Slava Borshchev and James Llontop. Borshchev, the 32-year-old Russian fighting out of Sacramento, is 7-4-1 overall. He is 2-3-1 in the UFC. He is coming in off of a loss. He got tapped out by Chase Hooper at UFC on ESPN, Lewis versus Nascimento, back in May. So he's looking to bounce back from that, keep his place in the UFC secure. In order to do that, he will have to get past Llontop, who is going to try to put a disastrous UFC debut in the rear view. The 25-year-old Peruvian is 14-3 overall. He's 0-1 since joining the UFC out of season 7 of Dana White's Contender Series and as the former FFC welterweight champ in Peru. He made his UFC debut back in April at UFC on ESPN, Nickal versus Perez, where he got tapped out late in the first round by Chris Padilla, that after missing the lightweight limit. So, like I say, inauspicious debut for the Peruvian. He's going to look to bounce back from that. He is not favored to do so, as Borshchev is minus 250, Llontop plus 200. I'll be honest with you. I don't get this line. I'm not super high on either guy, but Borshchev is almost on that level of like, I don't know if he should be a 2.5 to 1 favorite over anyone in the UFC lightweight division.
So they could have made him 6.5 to 1. Just
here's the thing. I think Llontop is a mildly interesting prospect. I just think he's in the wrong weight division. He's not a lightweight. Fighting in Peru, he fought at lightweight for a while, then moved up to welterweight, instantly won the title and defended it like 3 times. He's a huge dude. And even watching tape of his fights in Peru, he just looks like a totally different guy. At 155, he looks like a guy who killed himself on his way to the scale and fights like someone who is guarding a gas tank that he knows is not its best. At 170, he fights a lot more kind of like your stereotypical Peruvian fighter these days. Hyper aggressive striker who's not a wrestler so much as an opportunistic grappler if he hurts his opponent and they shoot a bad takedown or he ends up in a scramble. Like, I feel like that's kind of the blueprint of the, fighters coming out of Peru these days. Llontop is from that mold, and he's a big athletic guy that's only 25 years old, though, and he just barely turned 25. If this fight were at 170, I'd feel comfortable taking Llontop, and I'm still kind of leaning his way because Borshchev, obviously, he hasn't quite delivered on the promise that we were hoping for coming out of the Contender Series. We know that he is a decorated and credentialed kickboxer, and he's capable of breathtaking striking offense, but only when he has a very, very cooperative opponent. Mm-hmm. Basically, when he has an opponent who is willing to stand right in front of him and bang, not try to take it to the ground, and isn't fast, strong, or technical enough to keep up with his kicking onslaught, then yeah, Borshchev is going to knock the crap out of that guy. Everyone else, his takedown defense is bad. Like, Mark Jacqueline is an underrated wrestler. Like, he might be England's greatest MMA wrestler ever. I don't know, but Jacqueline used him for a tackling dummy. Chase Hooper, embarrassingly enough for Borshchev, held his own on the feet as well before tapping the guy out.
Yeah.
I don't think Llontop's best future is at 155, but give me the upset here. I just think he has way more upside. He is going to be bigger, and he has the capability of testing Borshchev's takedown defense and submission defense. Like, if he doesn't like what he's getting on the feet, I do think he'll do just one of those crash the pocket, tumble us both to the ground takedowns. Borshchev would really have to thread the needle to win this fight. He'd either have to just get an absolute kill shot on Llontop, which he's capable of, but it's not really his calling card, or he'd have to like rip him to the body a lot of times, and he does great work to the body, but he'd have to do that a bunch of times and hope that the combination of his own body work and Llontop's brutal weight cut, does his work for him. I'm not seeing either of those things. So it's nothing like the all-timer of an upset that you just finished picking, but give me James Llontop to beat Slava Borshchev. I'm going to say he wins a decision, just wins 2 rounds out of 3, and I would not be at all stunned if Llontop misses weight again.
Yeah, this is a really fun fight, though. I get what you're saying. I mean, you mentioned the guy. I mean, he's a big dude, Llontop. And Borshchev, I mean, he's a really fun kickboxer. If this was a kickboxing match, I'd definitely feel a lot better about him. I mean, he's obviously a decorated striker, K1 champion and all that hoopla. But Yeah, he fights like a Muay Thai striker, and he fights like this is a Muay Thai fight. He's going to stand tall right in front of his opponent, and he's got fast hands. He's explosive. He's accurate. I like his jab. He works behind a good jab. Hard, tight hooks. He does work the body well. I go back to like Dakota Bush, where he's smashing him with body shots. Probably, like you mentioned, probably be a good idea against Llontop to go to the body. He's good at slipping his head just off the center line and then countering with some power shots of his own. I might disagree on his power. I think he's got pretty big power. His kicking game is really good though. Like good kicks to the body. His calf kicks are some of the best in MMA. The problem is everything else. Like one, for a really good striker, he's got durability issues. I mean, Sedikov hurt him bad in their fight. I mean, you said that Chase Hooper had success on the feet. Chase Hooper dropped him with a punch. Chase freaking Hooper dropped him. Like I always go bring up the Chris Dunking, like dropped him with a calf kick. You mentioned like terrible wrestler, like possibly the worst defensive wrestler in the UFC. You talked about Mark Diakese can't throw down. Mark Diakese took him down 11 times. Mike Davis took him down 9 times. That's 20 takedowns, just those 2 fights alone. And I did math for you guys who can't do it. He, to his credit, he does pretty well to get back to his feet, if you say that.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you take someone down 11 times, it means they got up 10, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Chase Super subbed him, but it took him a while, before he locked in the submission. So, I'm kind of giving out like participation trophies, I guess. On top of what I like about him is he's 25 years old. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I like about him. He's got some experience down in the UFC. He can fight out of both stances. He's a pressure striker. Kind of swarms people with his output. Great straight right. He's also a slip and rip guy. Nice pop in his hands. He's not even in his like power years. Has 7 TKOs already. Good kicking game. Hard kicks to the body. He likes to close the distance, but not necessarily look for takedowns. More to grind in the clinch. Use his size. Knees inside. Elbows inside. Not much of an offensive wrestler. I mean, against Borshchev, like you don't really need to be much of an offensive wrestler. But bad takedown defense himself. He does get up if you take him down, and he's got good cardio to go hard this whole fight. This is a really fun fight. Like I'm with you, man. I think the battle line should be much closer. I think both guys are pretty good strikers. Obviously, Borshchev has the pedigree, but he's also taken a lot of damage. And Llontop has the youth and the pressure. I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go with Borshchev. I like his calf kicks a lot. And I just keep picturing him just chopping the legs of Llontop. And you know what? I'm being bold. I'll see he finishes him with leg kicks. Say he does it. I'll see in the second round he finishes him with leg kicks.
We head now to the women's bantamweight division for a matchup between Josiane Nunes and Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Nunes, the 30-year-old Brazilian, is 10-2 overall. She's 3-1 in the UFC. She is coming in off a loss. She won her first 3 fights out of the gate before running into Chelsea Chandler back in March at UFC Fight Night Tuivasa versus Tybura, where she dropped a unanimous decision. So Nunes will look to start a new win streak here. In order to do so, she'll need to get past Cavalcanti. 26-year-old from Portugal is 6-1 overall. She is 1-0 since joining the UFC as the outgoing LFA bantamweight champ. She made her debut almost a year ago. It was last September at UFC Fight Night Gane versus Spivak. It was I think the second UFC Paris of last year. She took a unanimous decision over Zara Fair and Dos Santos. So she'll look to make it 2 straight to open her UFC run. Your favorite, Keith, is -200. Your underdog +170. Who are they?
Wow. I have no freaking clue. So I was going to guess that Nunes was the favorite, but when you throw in like -200, I'd say, well, then Cavalcanti may be the favorite, because if anybody's a bigger favorite, it'd probably be the youth of Cavalcanti. So I'll say Cavalcanti is the favorite.
You are correct. Jacqueline Cavalcanti is -200. Josiane Nunes +170. And in the Bellator style human sacrifice prelims category, this is the closest line on the entire undercard. There's not a single fight closer than 2-1 on the undercard.
You know what? What would the payout be if you took every underdog and parlayed it all together?
Somebody that's watching right now, find out for us, and I will Venmo you some money to place on it. I can't do it from here. I got to go through too many firewalls and VPNs to play sports bets from Texas. I'm certainly not going to go.
If you Venmo me $10 and it cashes $50K, you ain't getting that $50K, dude.
That's why I'm going straight to the listeners.
It's gonna be the Duffy and where the hell happened to Shillan show.
on the recap, Keith's window will just be this like shower of money coming down. Like you won't see Keith at all. No, seriously, if you're watching this, figure out what the parlay is on all the undercards. All the undercard underdogs.
You might as well just do the whole card of underdogs. Is it a better chance? I mean, it's got to still be better chance than winning the lottery if you went underdogs straight the entire card. I'm sure the payout is in the lottery, but it's got to be pretty good.
It'd have to be enormous. All right, we'll figure it out. But here, Cavalcanti, smallest favorite on the undercard, just minus 200. I'm trying to find a nice way to say this, and I don't think there is one. Josiane Nunes is 3-1 in the UFC, and I think she might be the worst 3-1 fighter in the UFC outside of men's heavyweight that I've ever seen.
Yeah. That's because Dricus du Plessis is not 3-1.
And you know what? The fact that Nunes' game just kind of works, at least against low-level competition. I mean, she's got a little of that to her, but she won her first 3 fights over Bea Malecki, Ramona Pascual, and Zara Ferran dos Santos. 2 of those were at featherweight. Just the fact that she lost to Chelsea Chandler, and it was a competitive fight, but
sure.
Chandler blew weight. At least it was Chandler that blew weight. If Nunes, on top of all this, couldn't make 135 despite being 4 feet tall, then all of a sudden she's just like female Deron Wynn. She's exactly what you would expect from a 5'2" woman who fought a lot of her career at 145 pounds. She's built like a tank. She's strong as an ox. She's not super athletic. She makes her height disadvantage and reach disadvantage worse by not throwing many straight strikes. Yeah, she's a little tank of a brawler. She is a mauler in the clinch. Unsurprisingly, she's real good at just running other fighters to the fence, where her height, unless they really, really know what they're doing, her height almost becomes an advantage. But when that doesn't work, all the wheels kind of fall off of her wagon. Chelsea Chandler, whatever her failings may be, is big, much taller than Nunes, and Nunes couldn't bully her in the clinch. And Nunes being short, she's always kind of dependent on springing into range to land her offense on taller women, but that often ends with her just grabbing the clinch and, again, running him to the fence. It didn't work against Chandler. I don't think it's going to work against Cavalcanti either. Cavalcanti is big. She's, another woman, she fought at 140-pound catch weight in her UFC debut. I don't know if I'm super, super high on Cavalcanti, but she's young. It's women's bantamweight. It is as wide open a division as there is in the UFC right now. I think she's just going to big sister Nunes. I think she's going to do everything short of just putting the palm of her hand in the middle of Nunes's forehead and holding her at arm's length. She's going to have a huge height advantage on her. She's pretty good at using it, and she's pretty good at being a bully on people that get into range and get their hands on her. She's just a powerfully built fighter. Give me Cavalcanti to just make Nunes's life miserable for 3 rounds. I think Nunes is going to be stuck with a choose your poison thing, where either she's getting kicked at distance or she's charging into the pocket and getting hit with knees and stuff on the inside, or getting mauled against the cage. Give me Cavalcanti in a pretty one-sided decision here.
I was thinking about Josiane Nunes when she fought Babe Malecki. Babe Malecki was like a foot and a half taller than her. Like if there was women's MMA back at like UFC 4, that fight would have been added for sure, right? Like right before Keith Hackney and Emmanuel Yarbrough fought, they would have had Josiane Nunes versus Babe Malecki. Josiane Nunes, I like her better than you do. She's a southpaw that she fights with a lot of pressure. She wants to get in the pocket. She wants to brawl. She wants to throw power shots. I mean, she's always the shorter fighter, and she's generally speaking, until the Chandler fight, she found a good ability to get inside on people. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the case against Chandler. She will throw a lot of Superman punches to get inside, which I absolutely love. But she's not athletic enough, so I don't know if she gets off the ground, but she tries it. She loves like winging overhand shots. She dips her head a lot when throwing punches, which kind of leaves her open to be kneed, in the head. What's gonna happen to her? I mean, she can hit. I mean, she got Babe Malecki and cracked her and knocked her out. And she's got 8 TKOs, but the broadcast going to make her sound like she's like the female Francis Ngannou, like, and that's not the case. If she gets to the clinch, I mean, that's probably her best ability to dirty box inside. Not much of an offensive wrestler. She's a weak defensive wrestler, struggles to get off the bottom. She'll play. I don't want to say play jiu-jitsu. She'll like land elbows and stuff off her back instead of trying to get back up. If she's on top, she has some good ground and pound. Cavalcanti, I mean, she's very athletic, good movement. She's a good striker, can fight out of both stances. She got some quick hands. She's accurate. I love her straight right. I love that she's constantly attacking with combinations. I like her defense. You hear me constantly saying, this person doesn't have good head movement. She's hard to hit because she actually does have good head movement. And when she's not slipping, she's parrying punches, which I like. She's got good power in her punches, big kicking game. Good calf kicks, though she'll throw a lot of kicks, so she'll throw some naked kicks. She doesn't check leg kicks. Not an offensive grappler much at all, but she's hard to take down. She's got some solid takedown defense. She doesn't have a sub on her record, but she's got strong cardio. And I mean, we've seen her on the regional scene going 25 minutes, so going 15 minutes shouldn't be a matchup. This is a fun matchup. I like Josiane Nunes. I think the line should be much closer because of if Nunes can get inside and grind. I'm not going to go with the upset. I think Cavalcanti is much faster, but if Nunes can close the distance, I think she can beat up the clinch. But I'm still going to go with the youth. Cavalcanti's speed, her kicking game. Give me Cavalcanti. I'll see if she wins by decision.
Here's the real question: Jacqueline Cavalcanti is probably already one of the 3 most accomplished mixed martial artists ever from Portugal. Like behind like Pedro Carvalho and Andre Fialho, she might be number 3. Yeah. Like, what would it even take for her to pass Fialho? Like a couple more UFC wins. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, or maybe not even that much. Yeah. Well, they start like crediting people who aren't really Portuguese, but have Portuguese like heritage. Like Dennis Sweetbread Paiva stuff. Just anybody with the last name Medeiros.
Just any Hawaiian name Medeiros gets it.
Yancy Medeiros is suddenly Portuguese.
Yeah. Next up at UFC on ESPN 62, featherweights take the cage as Dennis Buzukja squares off against Danny Silva. Buzukja, the 26-year-old New Yorker, is 12-4 overall. He is 1-2 since joining the UFC as a 2-time veteran of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought on season 4 and lost, fought on season 5 and won, but was not immediately signed. He got the call almost exactly a year ago, debuted against Sean Woodson, came up short there. Since then, he has a loss to Jamal Emmers, and in his most recent appearance back in March, a third-round knockout of Connor Matthews. So Buzukja looking to even up his octagon record at 2-2 and build on the momentum of that knockout win. Has to get past Silva in order to do so. 27-year-old Californian is 9-1 overall. He is 1-0 since joining the UFC out of season 7 of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought on the Contender Series last September, beat Angel Pacheco, made his UFC debut in March at the same Tuivasa versus Tybura fight night card that a couple other fighters on this card last fought on. Got a split decision over Josh Kulabau. So he's looking to build on that momentum and is a comfortable favorite to do so. Silva minus 250, Buzukja plus 200. Keith, it's men's featherweight, so obviously almost anybody is probably not a future top 10 guy, but
yeah, it's just no bad.
Yeah, but do you see like any decent spark in Danny Silva, and do you think he gets it done here as the big favorite?
I mean, spark. How about the guy with the name Buzukja? That guy gets the spark. You know, what a great name, Buzukja. But I mean, I understand why Danny Silva has some buzz. I mean, he beat Josh Kulabau, but just for the record, I thought he lost that fight. Like I thought he won the third round. I thought he lost the first two. But he's only 27, so you like that. He's an aggressive striker that fights out of both stances, fights with a lot of pressure, especially early against Kulabau. Tight boxing, has pretty quick hands. I like he works the body. He really steps into his shots. I mean, decent pop. I mean, even Kulabau. I mean, he hurt Kulabau like seconds into the fight. Good calf kicks. He dropped Kulabau with the calf kick. I'm not crazy about his defense. You can tell he's got a very boxing heavy style, so he pillars a lot. He also rolls with punches, doesn't move his head off the center line when attacking. He likes to work in the clinch. Got some nice clinch takedowns. He also just dropped down on the hips, but I like his slide bys that he had. You know, and he almost subbed Kulabau early in the fight with the guillotine. And he's got good cardio. He goes hard the whole time. Buzukja, not a great athlete. I mean, he really struggled with the speed of Jamal Emmers, but he just makes up for with pressure, constantly marching forward towards his foe, behind a high guard defense, really steps into his shots. I mean, he showed some power against Connor Matthews. He can load up and try to land, you know, a fight-ending blow with every shot, which is an issue. But his best off is when he rips the body. He doesn't check kicks, though. Go back to like Sean Woodson. Sean Woodson pushes his legs. Not much of an offensive wrestler. Not much entries from the outside. He will get to the clinch and battle in the clinch. He's a weaker defensive wrestler. I mean, Sean Woodson, take him down for Pete's sake, and you know, no one's confusing Sean Woodson with Bo Nickal. He does struggle to get back to his feet. He's tough though, and he's got good cardio. You just have to worry about the damage he's taking. Like I go back to like the Emmers fight. Emmers battered him. So this is a fun fight. I'm picking Silva. I mean, I like his aggression. I like his threat of takedowns. And the way Buzukja fight, like they're very similar. They're both boxing heavy styles who pressures their opponents. It's just like Silva's just like everything that Buzukja does, like Silva's better at. Like he's got better boxing. He's got better high guard defense. He's Buzukja's tough. So I'll say he goes to, you know, but adding some takedowns there. I'll say Silva wins by decision.
Yeah, the thing you landed on there was kind of my conclusion. They're broadly similar fighters, but Silva just feels like he's a little better at everything, including just being a better athlete, just quicker, faster. He might hit harder, or if Buzukja hits harder, it's like when he overswings and by overswinging. So yeah, I expect this will be a real fun fight for as long as it lasts. I wouldn't be shocked if it goes the entire way, but give me Silva to kind of take advantage of Buzukja's hit ability, and I'm going to say he gets a TKO in the third round. Middleweights are up next at UFC Vegas 96 as Zach Reese takes on Jose Medina. Reese, the 30-year-old Texan, is 7-1 overall. He's 1-1 since joining the UFC out of season 7 of Dana White's Contender Series. He made his debut last December at UFC on ESPN, Dariush versus Sarukian, where really didn't even get out of the gate before Cody Brundage hurt him with the slam and finished him off with a few follow-up strikes on the ground. He came back in June at UFC on ESPN, Cannonier versus Imavov, and put away Julian Marquez in 20 seconds. So he's 1-1 in the UFC in less than half a round of total cage time. We feel like we've barely gotten to know him. We'll see if it goes any longer as he takes on Medina. 33-year-old Bolivian is 11-3 overall. This will be his UFC debut. He fought on season 7 of the Contender Series as well. Fought Magomed Gadzhizulov last October, dropping a unanimous decision. Got signed nonetheless. Here he is. Unsurprisingly, Reese is a big favorite. Massive favorite, in fact. He is minus 450. Medina plus 325 coming back. I like Zach Reese. He's from Texas. I mean, he's from Shiner, which is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's where the beer's from. But he trains in Houston. You know, he trains at a gym here, War Training Center, that, you know, I'm familiar with and friendly with their guys. I like him as a prospect. Having said that, at this point in his development, as green as he is, as raw as he is, he shouldn't be minus 450 against anybody in the UFC. But that dovetails nicely with my observation that I don't think Jose Medina should be in the UFC. And if you're watching this right now, feel free to come at me if Jose Medina turns into something solid in the UFC. I've been wrong about people before.
It ain't happening, Ben.
Well, what's his name? Steve, what's his name from Jackson Wink that I said was one of the worst?
Steve,
like the big tall featherweight.
Featherweight. Oh, Steve. Yeah. He keeps winning. He keeps knocking guys out. Steve. Fuck, he's right on the edge of my tongue. Steve. It's like a very common name, right? Isn't it like last name?
It's Steve Garcia.
Garcia. I knew it was a super like common name. Yeah. Like, I kept thinking of Steve like Peterson, and I'm like, I know that's not his name.
No, I said that about Steve Garcia, and all of a sudden he's doing pretty well. Hell, I said that about Josh Coolabah, and we love the guy now. When I say
except for last fight,
yeah, that one was rough. But here's the thing: Medina lost on the Contender Series, and he didn't just lose; he got washed. Like, I think Magomed Gadzhizulov won every minute of that fight. I
don't know.
And prior to that, he had fought just the lowest of low-level competition in Bolivia and didn't even beat all those guys. I flat out don't get why Jose Medina at age 33 is in the UFC right now. But I mean, it is what it is, I guess. Well, and he'll have probably at least 2 chances to prove me wrong on this one. Reese, like I said, I like Reese as a prospect. He's very green. In fact, it sounds insulting to call any fighter the poor man's anything. So I don't want to say the poor man's, but a less obviously shiny version of Joe Pyfer is what I see in him. A big, aggressive middleweight who's a good athlete, hard hitter, well-rounded, capable of wrestling, but prefers to use it to just kind of be a sprawl and brawl guy, but, you know, more than capable of either taking down wounded prey or following them down and finishing the job down there, you know, with chokes or ground and pound. Like, I feel like he's kind of a at this point, at least, slightly lesser version of Joe Pyfer. And because he's not undefeated, you know, he'll get plenty of chance probably to develop now outside of the limelight. I just love that Reese was the guy who happened to be in the cage the one time Cody Brunge decided to wrestle somebody. You know, but here he's got all the advantages. He's younger than Medina. He's going to be a much better athlete, faster, stronger. He's a really hard hitter who he's not perfectly polished as a striker, but you know what? He throws in combination, and that's more than a lot of people can say, especially in a division like middleweight. Medina is basically a brawler that's going to be giving up reach and speed and probably even power to Reese. This is kind of teed up for Reese to get just a highlight reel knockout, and I think that's what's going to happen. Give me Reese to get a first round knockout here. It'll probably be wild for as long as it lasts. I wouldn't be surprised if Reese gets rung up in the middle of it as well. But at the end of it, give me Reese to win by first round knockout, and I think he's going to end up with his first 3 fights in the UFC taking a total of less than 1 round of total cage time.
Yeah, Reese. This fight. Reese is a big dude. I mean, he's huge, long, lengthy guy. He can fight at both stances. Solid boxing. Throws straight shots down the pipe. He attacks with the combinations. Has good power. I mean, we saw that against Julian Marquez. He still has tall man's defense where he keeps his chin high in the air and pulls his head straight back, which I don't like. But he's got good long kicks. I haven't seen too much of his offensive wrestling. His defensive wrestling's weak, but he has 2 subs on his record. If he's put on his back, he doesn't really does move pretty well off his back. Got an armbar off his back in one of his fights. Medina, I mean, I'm with you. I'm trying to find a reason why this guy's in the UFC. I mean, I don't.
There's no injury replacement or anything. There's no late notice. This was booked.
They put a PI in Bolivia or something. Like I don't know what's. The guy's not a good athlete. I mean, he got his ass handed to him on the contender series. It was a decent fight, but it wasn't like this barn burner where like, oh man, give Griffin Bonner thing where you give the other guy the contract too. Like he just was a punching bag. I mean, he's a lumbering kind of guy. He's got good output. I'll give him that, but he's slow. He wants to get in the pocket and he wants to brawl, and he's got pretty good power, but he's so hittable. Lacks head movement. I mean, he got his legs beat up on the contender series. He will close the distance or grind and clinch, but he's not a very good wrestler. If he ends up on top, he has good ground and pound, but he's a terrible defensive wrestler. He struggles to get off the bottom. He does have 2 sub wins, and he has good cardio, so give him that. But I'm trying to be nice to this guy. You're much higher on Reese than I am. Well, I don't know if I shouldn't say that you're higher on him, but I think I have a little more wait and see approach. Like you're kind of it seems like you got him in like the solid prospect, and I'm like, I'm intrigued to see where he goes. What I do know about Reese is that he's at least UFC level. And Medina's tough, and he can take a beating, but talking about how tough you are is never really a compliment.
No,
I can't imagine Reese just not piecing this dude up from distance. Medina seems like he can take a beating, so I'll say he makes a decision, but we might even have like some 10-8 rounds in there. This is going to be a shellacking. Give me a Reese by decision.
Next up at UFC on ESPN 62, and as the card is constituted as of the beginning of fight week, at least, the top prelim is a middleweight matchup between Edmen Shahbazyan and Gerald Meerschaert. Shahbazyan, the 26-year-old Armenian-American, is 13-4 overall. He is 6-4 since joining the UFC out of season 2 of Dana White's Contender Series. He's coming in off a win. He knocked out AJ Dobson late in the first round back in March at UFC on ESPN, Hebus versus Nami Nunes. He'll look to build on that momentum, put together his first win streak in the UFC in almost 5 years at the expense of Meerschaert. 36-year-old Wisconsinite fighting out of Florida is 36-17 overall. He's 11-9 in the UFC. He is also coming in off a win. He tapped out Brian Barberena in the second round back at, again, UFC Fight Night, Tuivasa versus Tybura. So he also looking to put together his first win streak in a couple of years. He is not favored to do so. Shahbazyan, minus 320, Meerschaert plus 250. Okay, if you are listening to this on your podcast platform of choice rather than enjoying our handsome mugs on YouTube, you missed Keith making his what the hell is up with that betting line face. And I'm going to claim my privilege as the host and jump all over this. What the hell? Like, forget the UFC will put the trend up on the screen of fighters who are, more than 7 years older than their opponent or more than 10 years older than their opponent, lose 68% of the time. Forget that. Edmen Shahbazyan has made incremental improvements since he's been in the UFC. It's hard to believe he's still only 26 years old, but he's still a slightly refined version of the same guy who hit the division like a bolt of lightning and actually had Ronda Rousey showing up on UFC cameras for a few minutes and then crashed and burned when he ran into decent fighters. He is exactly the kind of over-talented underachiever that Gerald Meerschaert eats for breakfast. And I don't see what's really changed there. All Shahbazyan has, since his since his brutal losing streak, because he won his first 4 fights. He won his first 4 fights in the UFC. Was, like 21 years old. He was one of the youngest people in the UFC and got fast tracked into fighting top 10 middleweights. And that all came crashing down as Derek Brunson, Jack Hermansson, and Nasruddin Imavov all just crushed him. All Shahbazyan has since then is 2 wins over guys that are probably not UFC material, even in the 185-pound division, which is super threadbare. And then a loss to Anthony Hernandez that looked exactly like his losses to Brunson, Hermansson, and Imavov, where Shahbazyan came out to a hot start, but fighting a durable, crafty, and well-rounded opponent, he gassed out, showed his durability problems, and Hernandez took over and whooped him. Like, I see no reason that Meerschaert can't follow that same route to victory. Now, Meerschaert's whole game is built around, I'm sure not on purpose. He's not Darren Elkins. Like, you can tell that Darren Elkins likes to go out, get disfigured, and then come back and win. I'm sure Meerschaert would love to just go out and lance people with head kicks, but he's also a smart, wily veteran who knows what he's really good at. And he's good at taking a little punishment if he has to, waiting for his opponent to make a mistake, and taking over with really good grappling all around, but certainly one of the nastiest and most opportunistic guillotines in MMA history. He can be taken out of there during that early going. A fighter who's faster than, well, everyone's faster than Meerschaert, but who's like faster than the average, faster than Meerschaert, and hits hard, can short circuit that whole game plan before it has a chance to start. Look no further than Joe Pyfer, Khamzat Chimaev, even Ian Heinisch. But it's not enough just to be faster than him or hit hard. Like, he beat Trevin Giles. He didn't beat Kevin Holland, but it was a super close fight. Like, Shahbazyan could knock out Meerschaert in the first 2 minutes of the fight. He's still that guy. Like, Shahbazyan still is very fast, hyper aggressive, has a ton of power, mostly because he throws everything into his strikes, especially in the early going. What made him so dazzling early in his UFC run, and then was so ineffective again once he hit top 10 opposition, was that he came in just like a guy that was used to knocking everyone out in 60 seconds. And at least through the kind of Jack Marshman's and Brad Tavares's, like, I mean, knocking out Tavares in the first round was like a serious feather in his cap, but he still approaches fights that way. And if he catches Meerschaert clean in the first half of the first round, this thing's probably over, and we'll be reminded that Shahbazyan's only 26 and the sky might be the limit. I don't see it happening. Like, Shahbazyan's a big favorite here, but give me Meerschaert. If this makes it to the first, if this makes it to the end of the first round, even if Shahbazyan is up 10-8 at the end of the first round, I'm feeling comfortable with my pick of Meerschaert.
Sure.
Because I don't even think it ends in a draw. I think Meerschaert ends up tapping out Shahbazyan or pounding him out on the ground late. I have no faith in third round Edmen Shahbazyan. He's just been a walking corpse by that point. Yeah, give me Meerschaert to do the Gerald Meerschaert thing, walk through the fire, come back, get his hand raised, and good on him. 36-year-old Gerald Meerschaert, one of the ultimate overachievers in UFC history. The guy is 11-9 in the UFC, and that's about 10 more wins than he should have on paper. Love the guy.
This your prediction reminds me of I think I've told you this story before. My oldest sister, who like has never watched fights with me, was somehow she watched a fight with me, and it was Evan Tanner versus Phil Baroni. You know how Phil Baroni fought, and he was jacked up, and I said to her, I said, listen, I'll make a bet with you. I will take this guy, this good-looking macho New York guy, for the first 2.5 minutes of the fight. If he doesn't knock him in the 2.5 minutes, I don't care how bad a beating he's put on the other guy. I switch my pick to the other guy. Deal? And it was like what exactly they said. Baroni beating the shit out of him, and then Tanner come back and went on. So yeah,
and Baroni, like Shahbazyan, has what our buddy Devin Tejada calls the electric toothbrush cardio, where it's humming along, but as soon as it slows, it's like you don't have 5 minutes to finish brushing your teeth. You got 10 seconds.
Yeah, yeah. Like my electric razor is the same way. Yeah. So I like to point out that Shahbazyan is only 26, and when you look at his record, the losses, the losing streak you went on, it's a really good crop of guys to lose to, like Derek Brunson and Anthony
Hermanson and Imavov are all top 10 or top 5 people, and Anthony Hernandez, yeah,
it might be better than all of them.
Yep.
yeah. I mean, he's a long and lengthy fighter. His boxing offense has been improving, becoming more technical. He's starting to measure his foes. He's got a nice long jab. He's accurate. He's good at wrapping his punches around his opponent's high guard defense. His check left hook is his best strike. He has power. I mean, he hurt AJ Dobson bad in his last fight. I like the way he works the body. He's got mean body kicks. I mean, go back to like the Dolce Lingbula fight. The problem is he has defensive issues. He's very hittable. He doesn't check leg kicks. He's not much of an offensive wrestler, but he's a bad defensive wrestler, and he struggles to get off the bottom. Going back a while, but like Hermanson and Brunson kind of kept him down. And then you mentioned his cardio. I mean, he's gassed out in many fights. Derek Brunson, Darren Stewart, a fight that I mean, I knew that was forever ago, but I'm just building up my point. Like the guy that he was dominating, Darren's, a guy that he should be way better than Darren Stewart came back on. Jack Hermanson. Moving to Meerschaert. I mean, I love Meerschaert. I mean, he isn't much of an athlete. Nothing jumps off the page about him. He's just insanely tough and crafty. He's a southpaw that has tons of output. He's a builder that gets stronger as the fight goes on. He isn't much of a striker. I mean, he's slow. He's got better kicks than he has like punches. I like his body kicks. He's not a strong offensive wrestler, but he's got enough like craftiness to win scrambles or just get a scramble started. His entries, they aren't bad, but he's not an NCAA All-American wrestler. His takedown defense is bad, and he makes it worse because he jumps guillotine, but he's a slick grappler and he's got a great guillotine. He can get subs everywhere. He will play BJJ off his back, which is concerning, and he struggles to get off the bottom. The big concern I have is he's taking a large amount of damage. You talk about Shahbazyan cardio could, suddenly turn off. The damage that Meerschaert has taken, he could certainly just turn off his chin. He could suddenly be Ricky Glenn, the way he was reacting to punches. And I think there's been signs of the fact that he isn't reacting well to strikes. I really want to pick Meerschaert with you. And you know what, dude? I'm gonna. I think you broke it down perfectly. I think it's either Shahbazyan early where he beats him up and he trashes him, and it's like, oh man, this is the guy we expected. Or Meerschaert keeps pressing the action. He weathers the storm. He gets hurt, but he doesn't get put out. Shahbazyan runs out of gas, and Meerschaert subs him in the third round. So give me Meerschaert by third round sub.
And if Shahbazyan ends up winning, especially if he ends up like winning after the first round, Extreme Couture instantly is on the Bulls list.
There you go.
Next up at UFC Vegas 96, and at least as the card is constituted as of the beginning of fight week, the beginning of the main card is a welterweight contest between undefeated Michael Morales and Neil Magny. Morales, the 25-year-old Ecuadorian by way of Mexico, is a perfect 16-0 as a professional. He's a perfect 4-0 since joining the UFC out of season 5 of Dana White's Contender Series. This will be his first fight of 2024. He appeared most recently back at UFC Fight Night Allen versus Craig last November, where he took a unanimous decision over Jake Matthews. He will look to make it 5 straight to open his UFC run against Magny. 37-year-old Haitian American is 29-11 overall. He's 22-10 since joining the UFC out of season 16 of The Ultimate Fighter. He fought most recently at UFC 297 back in January, where he knocked out Mike Malott with just seconds remaining in the final round. He'll look to make it 2 in a row, put together his first win streak since early 2022. He is not favored to get it done, to say the least. On a card packed with big, wide betting lines, this is the second widest on the card, as Morales is minus 650, Magny plus 450. Keith, I'm going to flip this to you, but without looking, I would guess that this is the biggest underdog Neil Magny has ever been, including his fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Or if not, this is close. It's gotta be.
Come on.
It's gotta be a referendum on Magny being 37, having 500 UFC fights, and having absorbed 12,000 significant strikes. Or, I mean, I might be exaggerating those numbers a little, but maybe an acknowledgement that one of the UFC's ultimate grinders is getting near the end of the road. Tell me if you agree with that line. If you think Morales gets it done, if you think he's the real deal, tell me what's good about this fight, man.
Yeah, I mean, Neil Magny. I mean, what are they going to learn? Like, what was his line against Malott? I mean, he was a massive underdog in that fight, right? I mean, not to this extent, but like, there's probably 3 guys on the roster that Neil Magny, welterweight roster, Neil Magny should be this big of an underdog too. I mean,
maybe Malott was minus 350.
Okay, so dude, he just beat Malott and you're doubling the line.
Mm-hmm.
And or almost doubling the line. I mean, Shavkat and probably Shavkat, Edwards, and Belal Muhammad. That should probably be the only 3 guys to be this big. I mean, maybe there's somebody else. Or, I mean, Magny. I mean, we know what he is at this point. I mean, he's a high.
Rakhmonov minus 390.
There you go. I mean, that was kind of Rakhmonov's like really big coming out party when he beat the shit out of Magny, but. I mean, I expect him, if he was fit, Magny would be like negative 800 or something. But
yeah,
he's a good high output striker. The problem is his output isn't what it was in his prime. I mean, I think it's safe to say, even though he's beating guys like Mike Malott, he's not in his prime, but he still gets stronger as the fight moves along. My concern is I've noticed him losing hand speed, and he struggles with just the overall speed of other guys. Like, he really struggled with the speed of Ian Gary. He's a long and lengthy fighter that, tries to pop shot from range. He's got a crisp jab, no loading upper tells. We've said that before about him. He's got a big kicking game, especially the teep kicks and good calf kicks. I love his step in knees, which he's so good at because of how tall he is. He does do what all the tall guys do, pull the head straight back, keep the head on the center line. He's also, because of those long legs, he's open to calf kicks. When his opponents gets into punching range, though, he's so smart at just grabbing and initiating the clinch. I've talked about this. It's probably, I think, one of his best tools. He likes to wrestle and clinch, batters with knees and elbows inside. He's also good at just like hitting slick slide bys and taking the back from there. I go back to like the Danny Rodriguez fight where he did that. He's a good offensive wrestler. Took Danny Rodriguez down 5 times, relentless on the mat returns. The problem is he struggles with the upper echelon grapplers in the division. I mean, like, I know it was a while ago, but like Michael Kessier and RDA just took him down and dominated him. Shavkat took him down, dominated. Gilbert Burns dominated him. You also have to worry about the massive amount of damage he's taking over the year. Like, anybody who's 36 years old in the welterweight division should be, extremely concerning. But then you have the schedule that Neil Magny has been on. I mean, he hits volume and, quality and quantity. Like, he's fought everybody, and he's fought everybody who's good too. So it's like he could have, falling apart at any time. And I think there are some signs there of that decline. Morales, this guy's one of the best prospects in the UFC. I mean, obviously, when you're as big as a favorite, like they put a line against someone like Neil Magny, you expect that. What I love is that he's still only 25 years old. He's a long and lengthy guy. He's a great striker. He's got fast hands. He's got a crisp jab. He does drop his hands. He throws from his hips, but sometimes that could be an advantage. It comes from a different angle that's harder to see. when he springs, he'll stay on the outside and he suddenly springs to the mid range and lands power shots. He's got some power. He hits hard too. I mean, he knocked out Trevin Jones, he blasted Jake Matthews, hurt him a bunch of times. He's got a big kicking game. The defense is a little bit of an issue. He's lacks some head movement, but he's a very good offensive wrestler. I wouldn't say he's elite, but I mean, he was taken on by Adam Fugit, but he's very good at winning wrestling exchanges. I like his fight IQ too. Like he was looking for takedowns and big flurries at the end of rounds against like Jake Matthews. Like, oh, it's a close round. This 10 seconds. Let me flare with a combination, or let me try to get a takedown. Just very smart that way. Though he isn't much of a submission threat, he only has one submission. As far as prediction goes, I mean, Magny has played spoiler in his last fight against Mike Malott. He's probably, I mean, if we go down his record, I'm sure he's played spoiler a lot more times than just against Malott, but that's someone in my recent memory. Yeah, he's busted prospects, hype trains. I mean, can he do it again? I don't think so. I think Morales is a much better prospect than Malott. And that's not a dig on Malott. I'm all in on I'm Morales, excuse me. I think his striking and his wrestling might be better than Magny's. I think this might be similar to what we just talked about Shavkat, where it's like, oh shit, this dude is so legit. Like this is that moment. I don't know if it'll be Shavkat. I don't know if he's as legit as Shavkat, but you know, that's you're talking about possibly the best guy in the division, but I think he batters Magny. I think he punishes him for 15 minutes. Magny's tough. I see Magny makes the decision, but give me Morales by decision.
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot of what you're putting down there. I'm very high on Morales as a prospect, and I've been pleasantly surprised and gratified that the UFC has been able to bring him along in such a reasonable and measured fashion. Normally, you get a 16-0, well now 16-0, but you know, back when he was a 12-0 knockout artist, built like he is with a highlight reel like his, he is exactly the kind of guy that would get brought along too quickly. And it really hasn't been. Just very sensible matchmaking. And Magny is kind of the logical next step in that progression. If he dusts Neil Magny, I think it'll be very reasonable to call for a kind of fringe top 15-ish opponent next, just Magny being kind of a fringe X top 15-ish guy. But so good on the UFC there. And again, when you get someone come to the UFC like Morales did when he arrived, the natural thing to ask whenever a knockout artist, undefeated knockout artist comes along is, well, let's wait and see what it looks like when they fight a wrestler. But as you pointed out, Morales already is not one-dimensional. He's already a smart, opportunistic offensive wrestler. He's an improving defensive wrestler, and he's already fought some guys that wanted to take him down. Trevin Giles never got the chance to, but Giles is exactly the kind of guy that's not afraid to take somebody down if it's his best route to victory. Max Griffin wanted to take him down. Jake Matthews wanted to take him down. He's already passed that kind of test. He's the kind of guy that, yeah, it's time to start getting a little excited about Michael Morales, especially if he justifies the minus 650 line on Saturday against Magny. Yeah, Neil Magny has been one of our guys for a long time. He's been one of my guys since before I was doing this in any kind of professional capacity. Just it's hard not to love the guy. He embodies everything you want. He's just, yeah, but he's been in the UFC for a long time. And yeah, what originally made him pop on the radar out of all the guys from Tough 16 was he was the guy, and I think I've made this joke before, he's the guy that looked around the Tough House and was like, man, I could get used to fighting every 4 or 5 weeks. This is great. And he went on and straight out of Tough. Yeah. He fought like 4 times in 2013, 5 times in 2014, 5 times in 2015. And yeah, that was his late 20s, early 30s, but that was taking tread off the tires. And even at the time, he was in some fights where he was taking a lot of damage. Like, I mean, everyone remembers the end of his fight with Hector Lombard, where he just got back mount and punched Lombard in the head 300 times. But I think that only evened up the strike total because Lombard had been tuning him up for 2.5 rounds before then.
I love Neil Magny.
Yeah, dude. I don't dislike very many fighters. Just it's not in me to dislike a fighter, but it did my heart good to see Neil Magny just sitting on Hector Lombard's back and punching him in the head 300 times. Anyway, his calling card, aside from toughness, cardio, pace, being a builder, is his well-roundedness. Like, it's always been possible to beat Neil Magny if you are super elite at something. Like, he's a 7 at everything. If you're a 10 at something, you can often, quote, impose your will on Neil Magny. Like, Lorenz Larkin just completely worked him on the feet in their fight. Obviously, Chiesa, you mentioned, Rakhmonov really worked him over on the ground. And that's unsurprising out of Rakhmonov, but I was surprised at how badly Chiesa out-grappled Magny. Just Chiesa, I mean, he did things to Magny with one hand that usually require two hands to do. He almost did like the cop, like hammer lock, like just pinned one of his arms behind his back with like one hand like that. Yeah, it was bad stuff. And as you pointed out, he is starting to slow down a little bit. Super fast guys, again, like Lorenz Larkin, have always been able to give him fits, but Ian Gary, Neil Magny struggled with the speed. All this, my long way around to say that I think this is, at least at this time in his career, a bad matchup for Magny. Morales is going to be faster on the feet, harder hitting, and Morales, I think, is athletic enough, strong enough, and a good enough defensive wrestler that Magny won't have his perennially underrated offensive wrestling as a safety valve. I think Morales starts tearing Magny up on the feet pretty quickly. He's well coached enough that I think he'll start going to the leg kicks. Magny is often vulnerable to them, and they blunt the threat of the wrestling even more if Magny can't plant on the front leg. I could see it going the distance like you predicted. I could also see Magny getting dinged up and having to shoot for bad takedowns, legs already busted up, and Morales really going to work on him, or Morales like landing in top position off a blow and takedown and just hammering him out on the ground. It hurts my heart to do so, but I'm calling for that to be what happens here. Called durability, maybe the next thing to go with Magny, but give me Morales by 3rd round TKO. Next up at UFC on ESPN 62 is the featherweight final of the Ultimate Fighter Season 32. It's the mystery fight on the card. We already know that the first finalist is Khan Offley, the Australian featherweight who won his semifinal. Well, he won a semifinal a couple months ago, but his semifinal win was televised last week. He's 11-2-1 overall. He was a standout in pretty much every Australian promotion, Eternal MMA, Hex Fight Series, et cetera, et cetera. He will be meeting either Zigimantas Ramaska or Myron Santos in the final. They ain't paying me enough to break down tough fights in detail, so let me just give you the high view here. Any of these three guys, Offley, Ramaska, Santos, I don't see any of them as a huge upside guy. Featherweight, it's too crowded. But Offley, it's hard to believe he's an Australian because he just looks like and fights a little bit like a Team Alpha Male guy. He's just got kind of like that Chad Mendez, Joseph Benavidez, just like blocky wrestler build. He actually is a pretty good wrestler, hard hitter. But yeah, just good wrestler, good entries, pretty athletic guy, good submission artist. I mean, not really in like the pure artistic BJJ sense, but just in the sense of being aggressive on the ground, pounding on people and giving them the choice of getting pounded out or turning their back. It's much more of a Diego Sanchez like submission game. where he just does the rabid Wolverine Badger act on him. Of the other two guys, Santos is the younger guy. He's got the gaudier record. He's 13-1, where Ramasca is 9-2. But I would favor Ramasca to probably win that one. And of him or Santos, I think I'd give him the better chance of beating Offley. Ramasca is a big 145er. He's been lightweight in the past. I mean, he was lightweight leading right up to tough and cut to 145 to get onto the show, which is pretty impressive. If you've been fighting at 155 and you sign on the dotted line to make 145 possibly 3 times in like 8 weeks, that's a commitment. But he's a big guy, comes from a judo background, fights like it, but is a pretty long rangey striker on the feet. Like if he wins that other semifinal, I'd slightly favor him over Offley. If Santos gets past Ramasca, I call it close to a coin flip. And that's your preview of the featherweight final of the Ultimate Fighter season 32.
I agree with everything you said, Ben.
All right. Next up on the UFC Vegas 96 main card. And hey, we're almost there, guys. Third from the top. Your feature fight is the middleweight final of the Ultimate Fighter season 32, featuring Robert Valentin and Ryan Loder. Valentin, the 29-year-old from Switzerland, is 10-3 with 1 no contest overall. He will be facing Loder. 33-year-old American is 6-1 overall. It's hard to get super excited for me to get super excited about either of these guys, even at middleweight. I don't know if either of these is a future contender, but it's one of those cases here where I think Valentin has the higher upside. He's younger, he's bigger, he's already a better striker, but I think Loder might be too much for him right now. Like, Loder is a very good wrestler. Oh, I should probably say the line. Valentin's a slight favorite. He's minus 155, Loder plus 135. But I could see the upset here. Like, I could see Loder just taking Valentin down, rinsing, repeating. It might be a close thing on the feet. Like, Loder's, he's a decent striker. Neither of these guys is terrible. But Valentin, long, rangy guy. He's a good ground fighter when it goes to the ground on his terms, but I don't think that's going to be the case here. Give me Loder in a slight upset to be your tough 32 middleweight champ. Probably a pretty competitive decision where he wins 2 rounds out of 3, just with rinse and repeat takedowns, some sporadic ground and pound, maybe, threatening to pass guard and threaten with submissions or ground and pound from mount. But again, if only one of these guys is still in the UFC a year from now, I think it's Valentin. And if either of these guys is ever a top 10 middleweight, I'm leaning strongly towards Valentin.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pull back the curtain for a second. I'm gonna go try to trick our listeners. So I write down all the fights, like, a week ahead, and what I'm looking into and which fights I want to look more into. Listen, at the end of the week, I can't go super into every single fight. I'm not gonna pretend like I go crazy into everybody. Like Angela Hill, I've seen her enough. Like I know I'll get with Angela Hill. I wrote down the fights this week, and I've just one of these weeks, man. I wasn't refreshing, and this fight wasn't announced. And then suddenly, like today, I just double checked, and I was like, "Oh shit! Here's a fight with 2 guys I don't know anything about." So, and that was like an hour before we started. Not even an hour, like a half hour before we started taping. So I rushed real quick to try to at least watch a couple fights of this. I didn't go depth at all. I mean,
that's exactly what I did.
Yeah. So Loder, I saw more. I mean, he's 33 years old, so I mean, take that what it's worth. He's a southpaw. His striking is really to close the distance where he can wrestle. His threat of wrestling does give him opportunities to land some strikes, and he has some power in his hands. I like his body kicks. He drops his hands though. He doesn't move his head. He loves to wrestle. I mean, he's a former Division I All-American wrestler. I mean, don't get too excited. He took 7th, and it was 11 years ago. No, I'm not bashing taking 7th. So any All-American is incredible. But it was 11 years ago, so take it with a word. Heavy top pressure, but he will stall for long, crazy periods. He has no problem laying and praying. Valentin, I got even less with him. I looked into Yoda first. I didn't know it was Valentin. I was like, oh shit, Ben sending me an invite. I got to go. What I've seen of him, he's very unorthodox. He's a long, lengthy guy. He had an incredible knockout on his first fight in the tough house with his step-in elbow. A lot of spinning attacks, a lot of front kicks, heavy grappling. Not a great wrestler, but he's a grappler. Heavy top game. He's got some mean ground and pound. Dude, I have no clue. What I've seen, like, I don't like what I've seen in Loader. Like, he seems like I'm not bashing wrestlers. He just seems like everything that's like the bad part of wrestling. Where the guys, they haven't added all the rest of the tools. But don't follow this. Don't follow my pick on this one. Like, I didn't do the research. I'll be honest. Like, my bias for wrestling, I'm gonna take Loader 2 by decision. But again, like, whatever. Like, I'll take a pass. Like, I didn't watch. I watched like 2 or 3 of the first episodes, but I didn't go. I stopped watching The Ultimate Fighter. So I usually try to catch up and watch them all because I've watched like 1 million seasons of it. But I'm way behind in this season.
Yeah. So was I until today.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that when I started looking for Loader stuff, I ended up going down a rabbit hole of like University of Northern Iowa dual.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
That brings us to the co-main event of UFC on ESPN 62, a strawweight matchup between Angela Hill and Tabitha Ricci. Hill, the 39-year-old Marylander by way of San Diego, is 17-13 overall. She is 12-13 across 2 different stints with the UFC, joining the first time as a graduate of season 20 of The Ultimate Fighter, the second time as the outgoing Invicta strawweight champ. She's on a 2-fight win streak since dropping a decision to Mackenzie Dern last May in the headliner of UFC Fight Night 223. She has back-to-back wins over Denise Gomez and Luana Pinheiro. The most recent of those, the Pinheiro fight, was back in May at UFC Fight Night Barboza versus Murphy. She tapped her out with a guillotine choke, of all things, in the second round, the first submission win of her career. So Abu Dhabi Angie is now a thing. She's going to look to flex her impressive grappling game on Ricci. 29-year-old Brazilian is 10-2 overall. She is 5-2 in the UFC. She's coming in off a win. She fought Tisha Pennington at UFC on ESPN Lewis versus Nascimento back in May, picking up a split decision. Odds here, this is the only true pick 'em on the card. Both women are out there around -110, -115, depending on your sports book of choice. I have to say, if these two had fought, say, a year ago, I think Ricci would have been a comfortable favorite. It's
Dude. Wait to see my note. Wait till I get to my notes later.
Okay. Again, you won't find a bigger, more unabashed Angela Hill fan, at least in a professional capacity, probably than me. I think she's a fun personality. I enjoyed her fights since she was on Tough, through her run in Invicta, all that stuff. I'm glad that she's still in the UFC winning fights as she pushes towards her 40th birthday, and she's now closer to 40 than 39. I think it's all great. I think it's great that at age 39, she got her first career submission win. All great stuff. But everything here favors Ricci except for the weird Angela Hill magic. Ricci is almost a decade younger. She is stronger, faster, and more maybe not faster, but stronger and more athletic than Angela Hill ever was, let alone now. And like, Ricci has a kind of rudimentary game, but it's one that I think plays to her strengths. She's undersized, but powerful, fast, and athletic. And I think she usually fights to her best advantage. Unless this turns into one of those weird fights where a fighter that should beat Angela Hill going away just kind of freezes for 3 rounds, this feels like Ricci's fight to win or lose. Like, I feel like I know exactly what Hill's going to do. And winning the fight for Ricci should be as simple as take her down, keep taking her down, don't get guillotined. I feel like that's as simple as it should be. That this fight is a pick'em is either an indication that bettors and bookmakers think that Hill now is armed with a Gerald Meerschaert type guillotine choke, or they don't have faith that Ricci's going to do it, like what I just put up there on the whiteboard for her. You know what? I've been on the wagon, on the train for this long. I'm jumping back on. It was to my shame that I picked Pinheiro over Hill, and Hill like pulled out the guillotine choke. Give me Hill to win a decision in honestly what'll probably be a pretty miserable fight, as Ricci just gets stuck in front of her, getting jabbed and kicked, not shooting enough takedowns, and maybe watch Ricci trying too much to do takedowns from the clinch, which is one of Hill's stronger spots, where she could just be shooting from outside, picking Hill up and scooping her up and throwing her down. So yeah, give me Ricci to have a slight brain cramp and drop a decision to Angela Hill here.
You love Angela Hill.
She's great.
Oh, Angela Hill. I mean, I think we talked about this before. Is she number one for most times we broke down fighters? I know Jay mentioned it. I know it was Kevin Holland.
Yeah, it was her and Holland, that each of them we've done like 11 or 12 of their fights.
Yeah, I know Angela Hill. I think she's married, right?
Yeah.
No, she should just marry Kevin Holland. Like, and then just make a fighter who just fights every single weekend.
Fights every single weekend, and
twice. They fight twice.
And that fighter with the worst takedown defense in MMA history, like the cross.
It's true. Or maybe the opposite. Maybe if they had a kid, it'd be the opposite. Like the kid would never be like the most passive person. It'd be like freaking Gandhi or something.
Their kid's just born standing up and like.
Yeah, this fight. I mean, I'll say this about Angela Hill. I mean, you're making jokes about her. She's looked better now than she has looked ever in her career. I mean, when you talk about her getting a sub of Pinheiro, but she was winning before that. Like, she was looking great. She's a good volume striker who likes to work from the outside. She's good at using footwork to keep her distance. She works behind a strong jab, a nice check left hook. She's never been a power puncher. She's more of just a point fighter. She'll work the body. She avoids strikes with good head movement, slip and rip striker. Her slip right hand is her best punch, though she can overextend on her punches, kind of leaving herself open to be counters. She wants to be all the way in or all the way out. Like I've said before, she's not bad in the clinch. She can grind in the clinch. I go back to like the Emily Ducote fight where she smashed her up in the clinch. She battered
Loma Lagumi, man.
Yeah, Loma Lagumi. Yeah, Denise Gomez. Like, she's good at framing and blasting knees and elbows in that little space she makes. Now, she's not much of an offensive grappler. I mean, she has been using some offensive grappling lately. Like, she took Denise Gomez down. She subbed Luana Pinheiro. Again, take that for what it's worth. Not a knock on Pinheiro. I mean, like, Angela Hill's fought 900 times, and, she finally got a submission. She's always had really bad takedown defense. But to her credit, it has improved drastically recently. Now, again, I'm not going to pretend like she's vintage Jose Aldo, all this stuff and takedowns, but it's not, when you're ranking worst takedown defense in the UFC, Angela Hill isn't top in the women's list anymore. And she's got good submission defense. I mean, she went to the ground with Mackenzie Dern and didn't get sub, which is super impressive. Angela Reese, I mean, you mentioned she's a really short fighter, but she's very athletic, good footwork, fights out of both stances. I think her striking's good. The only time recently I wasn't impressed with the strike is when she went against Tisha Torres. She just didn't match her output, which was frustrating. But I like her boxing. She's like quick hands, likes to stick and move, cuts angles well on attacks. She gets in the pocket and lands good hard shots. She can fall in love with her power shots. Like, she fell in love a little bit with her overhand right recently. but she's got pretty good power. Not much of a kicking game though. She's mostly all boxing. That's not true. She throws kicks, but not enough. Like she is just not a big part of her game. Defensively, she likes to roll with punches, which I've said this a million times. It's an effective, like Izzy does it. So it's an effective tool to avoid strikes. I just don't think it looks good. It always looks like you get hit. She likes to grab the plum clinch. It's kind of like a safe somewhere, and she does well in that. She's a judo black belt. She uses her height disadvantage in the clinch well to kind of get solid head position in. She gets a lot of upper body takedowns. She's a good wrestler, and she will shoot for takedowns, but I think I've overrated her wrestling. Like her last fight, she was shooting at the waist a lot instead of like the upper thighs or, above the knees where you should be shooting. So she was like shooting into like body lock, like clinches. And I think that stopped her from getting takedowns. But if she gets the fight, they're going to smother and top girl. She's a very good BJJ practitioner. She has 3 subs on her record. And she showed ability against Polyana Viana to avoid submission. So I love that this fight's a pick'em. You said on the beginning of the show, Angel Hill doesn't deserve to be in a co-main event, but when you look at the card, like this is one of the fights I'm actually like very intrigued by. See if Angel Hill can keep the streak going. The reason why I said I laughed about my notes, I'm going to echo. This was in my notes. And if you asked me a year ago, I would have jumped all over Richie. Like this would have been an easy fight for Richie, but Hill continues to improve. Somehow, despite being late in her career, it's a good story. Let's put her in that category with the people that, like a Glover Teixeira. And I know Glover Teixeira had a much better career than Angel Hill overall before he won the title. But my point is like a guy that suddenly was looking better late in his career than he ever did earlier, and mm-hmm. That's not the best example. There's better examples, but you got my point.
Yeah,
I like both fighters. I think both fighters have their moments. I just like Angel Hill has grown on me. Like you've always been like Angel Hill, and I was always like the doubter on her, but she's won me over recently, and I've always been on Richie since she came to the UFC. I'm gonna go with Hill too. Her kicks, her length. She has this momentum thing. I'm just starting to believe that she's a different fighter than she was. This is against my own judgment because I do think Richie is probably the more skilled fighter. It's more of a gut call. I'm going to say Hill wins by split decision.
Yeah, and you mentioned just how remarkable it is that she's continuing, that she's not fallen off physically and that she's continued to round out her skill set past 40. It is only because of her longtime teammate and bestie, Jessica Penne, that she's not already the oldest woman to win a fight in the UFC strawweight division. But I think she takes that over if she wins on Saturday because Penne retired at age 40, like a year or two ago.
There you go.
Yeah. So something in the and it's San Diego, of course. If there's going to be some fountain of youth in the contiguous 48 states, it's probably in San Diego where it's gorgeous every day and all the people are healthy.
Yeah, a lot of people found their youth in San Diego.
Yeah.
It's got some nice beaches in San Diego.
Yeah. All right, you ready for the main event?
You know what? It's funny. I know you're like a world traveler. In like continental America, San Diego is probably the best place I've ever been to. Like cool, like one of the coolest places I've been to.
It's amazing. And dude, I don't know why it's been so many years since I've been there. Cause literally right now, my next younger brother lives in San Diego. My father-in-law lives in San Diego. Like we need to get out there.
Like you have a bunch of excuses to go out there.
Yeah.
How is it? That's not driving distance, right? Like that's really far.
No. I mean, it would be a 2-day drive.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
dude, it's 12 hours for me to get out of Texas.
Okay, so what the fuck am I talking about?
Like if I get on I-10, and I-10 is what you take to get to LA or San Diego.
Okay.
It's 11 hours to El Paso, which is the border between Texas and New Mexico.
So Keith, shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. Well, I know San Diego is like, southern, but yeah, you'd have to go through what? You have to go through New Mexico and
Texas, New Mexico, a little bit of Nevada and California. With that, we come to the main event of UFC on ESPN 62, a middleweight contenders matchup between former title challenger Jared Cannonier and rising star Caio Borralho. Cannonier, the 40-year-old Texan by way of Alaska, by way of Arizona. Talk about your travelers. He is 17-7 overall. He is 10-7 in the UFC. He, of course, has fought in 3 different weight classes in the promotion before really finding his niche at 185 pounds. He is 7-3 at middleweight. He is coming in off a loss, a 4th-round knockout by Nasruddin Imavov in the headliner of UFC on ESPN 57 back in June. That snapped a 2-fight win streak for him, so he's looking to get back in the win column and prove that at age 40, he's not done as a top-level contender. He will certainly be able to say that if he can get past Borralho. 31-year-old Brazilian is 16-1 with 1 no contest overall. He is a perfect 6-0 since joining the UFC as a 2-time veteran of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought on the 5th season of the Contender Series, beat Aaron Jeffrey. The UFC told him, try again. So he came back like 5 weeks later, 4 or 5 weeks later, and knocked out Jesse Murray. That was good enough to punch his ticket to the big octagon. And since then, as I said, a perfect 6-0, culminating with a 2nd-round knockout of Paul Craig at UFC 301 back in May. So he is looking for his 7th straight win in the middleweight division, looking perhaps to elbow his way towards the front of the line for a title shot. And he is moderately favored to do so. Borralho -200, Cannonier +170. Keith, Caio Borralho, he entered the UFC to not too much fanfare.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have made him fight on the Contender Series twice in 4 weeks. But since he's been in the UFC, all the guy has done is win, usually in dominant fashion, over increasingly formidable opponents. And on top of that, he has the one indefinable thing that the UFC craves. They covet it, and they can't make it. They have to find it. And that is people with star personalities. He's got the kind of effusive, happy, bubbly personality that it transcends translation. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, he's happy to try out his English on you, but even before then, he was just a charming guy. It was impossible not to smile at his post-fight interviews.
Yeah. He's like a Moicano kind of.
Yeah. I mean, he's not as angry as Moicano.
No, but I think when Moicano's having fun, and you know.
Yeah. Like, even when Moicano's angry, he's kind of
fun.
Like in the middle of a real rant, you don't talk about your 70-year-old dad still like fathering kids. Like, like he's clearly
playing women. Yeah.
Like, what a pleasant surprise this guy has been. And he's had no easy matchups in the UFC. Like, his first 2 fights in the UFC, Gaji Omar Gadzhiev and Armen Petrosyan, neither of them ranked contenders, but both good, solid fighters with at least some elite skill or other. Like, he's on a hell of a run, dude. Is this guy a future champ? And does he take the next step here on Saturday?
Well, you know, I always have that, like, champion is always so hard to say yes to, but like, is it a possibility? Yeah, absolutely. I'll say this: you're right. He hasn't had a easy matchup, but they've also slow tracked him a little bit compared to other prospects. Especially in a division that is in need of prospects. Like, this is not the division where there's just so many guys you can wait. Like welterweight was.
So many fighters in his same situation would have gotten jumped from Jamie Pickett to Derek Brunson, like, in the space of four fights.
Absolutely. You could see their progression. It's like, wow.
Look at Edmen Shahbazyan. We just talked about Edmen Shahbazyan.
Exactly.
He went from fighting Darren Stewart to fighting Derek Brunson in 4 fights.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny when you look at the guys he's faced, this is probably the biggest step up. You know, we're going from Gap but it's the right step up. Like, it's not, you know, it's time for you to get a big shot, get a main event, and you got a really good guy in Jared Cannonier. I mean, I'll say this: Cannonier lost, you know, and he lost by knockout, everything like that, but he looked pretty good for a guy that was, you know, he's 40 years old, on the shelf with a, you know, major injury for a long time. he might have been winning it when he got knocked. I can't remember. I think he was doing well earlier. Then it started. The tide started to turn against him. But he didn't look bad. I mean, he's a pressure fighter that was still pretty fast, explosive. He's got a great jab, short, tight shots. He's got good power. I mean, obviously, just they'll say it on the broadcast show. Just look at his massive legs that he has, and it's going to generate power. He sits out his punches. He throws thudding leg kicks. He's not a great wrestler, but he's so extremely strong that he'll back you up to the cage and just wear on you with his strength. I'm not too sure about his takedown defense. I mean, he showed great takedown defense against Jack Hermanson, but then they struggled with Derek Brunson's wrestling. Now, again, that was a while ago, but he's been out on the shelf for a while, so not so much I can use. If he gets on top, though, I mean, he's got some of the scariest ground pound I've ever seen. I mean, I've compared it to the past to like Derek Lewis. Borralho, I mean, there ain't many people that's going to make Jared Cannonier look small. Borralho might be the guy. Like, he is huge. He's a long, lengthy guy. He's a southpaw who he's well rounded. He moves well. He marches down his opponents. Though he can march down his opponents, but still be a little too patient. Like he was against Abus Magomedov. Like that fight was closer than it needed to be. He was kind of cruising at times. But when he's let his hands go, he's a slip and rip striker. He's good at it. He's accurate. Very good straight right. Showed really good power against Paul Craig. I mean, that's not saying too much. Paul Craig striking so much. Big kicking game. He loves flying knees. He's willing to try something, risky. Defense is an issue, though. He keeps his chin a little too high. He likes to wrestle, and he's good at it. He's a very good grappler. I should say he's a good wrestler. He's a very good grappler. If he can find a way to get the fight to the ground, he's very good. Good top game, inches at a time instead of rushing the position on the ground. Super slick back takes. If you get the hooks in, I've said it before, it's almost impossible to get his legs up because of how long they are. He doesn't rush submissions, though. The one time he did was the Mahmoud Murata fight. He lost position, rushing a submission attempt, but he is a submission threat. If he gets the top, he's got mean ground and pound. He's a weak defensive wrestler, and he struggled to get off his back at times. They go back to like the Murata fight where Murata kind of in the third round had a good round, but he showed good cardio. He's still going hard late in the third, moving up to 5 rounds. I don't think you have too big of a change for him, especially the camp he's with. He's like the face of the Fight Nerds. They are on a freaking streak right now. I mean, every time one of us picks against them, so I can't remember who it is, but one of the listeners who loves the Fight Nerds will be like, just comment like bad pick, the Fight Nerds don't lose. And there's a lot of truth to that. The Fight Nerds don't lose.
I've lost count, but there's something like 16-1 in the last 17 fights.
Yeah, it's awesome. And they're fun. They're a fun team. This is a big step up, though, for Borralho. And you said Borralho was a pretty hefty favorite?
He's -200.
Oh, -200. Okay. Like, that's what I expected. Okay. Well, no, actually, that's not true. I expected it to be a little closer. I expected it to be like -150, but I flip-flopped a little bit. Borralho was explosive, and I am definitely worried about Cannonier's durability at 40 years old. But I'm going to stay with the old guys. I went with Angel Hill in the last one. I'm going to go with Cannonier. I still think he's fast. I think he can win rounds with his jab. He's a very smart fighter. One thing about Cannonier is even when he's outmatched, and other than probably the Izzy fight, that was a terrible showing by him, and obviously that was his biggest moment. Every other time he puts himself, even guys like Robert Whitaker, he puts himself in a position to win a fight where a guy is clearly more skilled than him. And I think Borralho might be clearly more skilled than him. But I could see Cannonier forcing him on his back foot, jabbing him. Give me Cannonier. I'm going to say he wins by split decision.
Whew. I like the boldness there. I think the
take it upset today, brother.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
I think your breakdown of Cannonier is basically spot on. Interestingly, we just finished talking about Angela Hill, who even as she, crosses age 40, is shoring up the deficiencies in her skill set. Some of the same could be said about Cannonier, he has not been a static product. Well, he's barely recognizable from the guy that landed in the UFC 9 years ago at heavyweight. I mean,
no.
His legs are exactly the same.
Yeah. If you show the pictures, you say like, "Oh, it's his brother," or I can see the resemblance. Oh, that's like a cousin.
So is that the Muhammad Usman of the
exactly
family?
Like. Yeah, seriously. Yeah. You can see the resemblance, but you don't think it's the same guy.
Yeah. I covered UFC 271 in person. It's the one where he beat Derek Brunson. So I spent a good amount of time like talking face to face with him. Cannonier face to face is shorter than you would expect. Like he's listed at 6 feet tall, but like I feel like, God, dude, you're about my same height. But it's hard to describe like how powerfully built the guy is, and his handshake is definitely carried over from heavyweight. Like he's the power in the handshake definitely carried over. But Brunson looked way bigger than Cannonier. And I remember picking Brunson in that fight specifically because, well, when Brunson sticks to his game plan, he, especially at that point, was one of maybe the best wrestler in the division at the time.
Sure.
And Cannonier's Achilles heel was a takedown defense, but Cannonier won. And the difference was his takedown defense, and even more so, his refusal to just concede bottom position when he was taken down. Like in the first round, Brunson chained about 5 different takedown attempts together before he finally scooped up Cannonier, slammed him down, landed in mount, and Cannonier didn't panic, stuck him back in half guard in like 5 seconds and avoided any serious damage. Then second round, Brunson took him down again. That time, Cannonier just bucked him right off, basically swept him, could have taken top position, but instead got up, realized Brunson was getting tired, and teed off on him on the feet. That's stuff that would not have been in Cannonier's toolbox even 2 years before that. So impressive improvement from him. And it gives me hope, like if Borralho takes Cannonier down, that it's not just done deal. I agree with you that Cannonier's ground and pound is terrifying. And it is like Derek Lewis in the sense that it's not a different thing than his standing striking. It's almost like he's just, it's his regular striking, only you can't get out of the way. And there's a board behind your head with some canvas over it. It's completely terrifying. Being 40 and depending to the extent that he does on speed, and having had the injury that kept him on the shelf for basically an entire year, I do wonder if he's going to start slipping. I mean, you pointed out he was doing well in the Imavov fight early on, and then Imavov just kind of pulled ahead later. Just younger, fresher guy, bigger guy. Those are all the things you could say about Borralho. I think Borralho, Borralho is obviously the real deal. If he beats Cannonier convincingly, he might be one injury withdrawal away from fighting for a title this year. He won't be far down the list. Much as I can see the different ways Cannonier could upset Borralho, I'm kind of going with my gut here. Just the personal momentum he's got, the team momentum that they've got. And interestingly, for a team called the Fighting Nerds, they're already super elite at coming up with winning game plans for extremely different fighters. It's not Team Alpha Male that just kind of in their glory years was kind of stamping out carbon copies of very similar physiques and very similar skill sets. Like the fighters that are winning at the Fighting Nerds are so different from each other, and they're just, it's working for them. I could see this being a little bit like the Imavov fight for Cannonier, where he's doing well early. I could see Borralho just probably being a little tentative once he realizes how fast and how hard Cannonier's kicks are, once he realizes how fast and how accurate and how painful Cannonier's jab is. But if Borralho at the end of the first round is like, hey, I've taken some shots from this guy, I'm still standing, I'm good, make some adjustments between rounds. I think it's going to be like the Imavov fight where he gets his bearings and starts to pull ahead later. I'm going to say this one goes all 5 rounds, but give me Borralho by decision, and probably like a thing where it's 49-46, 49-46, 48-47, depending on whether you gave the second round to Borralho or Cannonier, but Borralho wins the last 3 rounds going away. And that is it. The Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 62, Borralho versus Cannonier, also known as UFC Vegas 96, also known as the Ultimate Fighter Season 32 finale. I've been Ben. He's been Keith. If this is your first time watching or listening to one of our previews, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. You picked an interesting one to join us on, since this is one of the shortest ones we've ever done, and one where we both openly kind of admitted that we hadn't done the deepest tape study for one of the fights. But nonetheless, we do think that we bring a mix of in-depth analysis and occasional humorous or historical asides that is pretty unique in this industry. Please do like, subscribe. Neither of those things cost you anything. They make our bosses happy and allow us to keep bringing you this content free of charge. And drop us a comment. Keith and I both man the comment section. We'd love to hear your take on these fights. We both picked some pretty big upsets on this one. Keith may have picked the biggest upset he has ever picked in the history of our show. So if you think we're off our rockers, let us know. If you're right and we're wrong, we will definitely give you all the credit. Join us for the recap. We'll be live on the Sherdog YouTube page right after the main event. Keith takes the captain's chair. Either I or a special guest will be in the other chair. We'll go over all 11 of these fights, talk about what was good, what was bad, what was surprising, what was controversial. There's always something. We'll talk about what's next for some of the notable winners as well as losers, and we'll talk with you because the live chat on the YouTube page is open that whole time. So we're taking your questions, your comments, and your hot takes in real time. We have a growing group of friends that hang out with us after the fights, and we would love for you to be part of it. Between now and then, thank you once again for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and by all means, enjoy these fights.
Make your bed of fairy tales while you're hunting for your whale. So cold and blind. Don't